So one of the, when we look at different industries, people often talk about industries that are going to disappear entirely because of AI. And there's one industry that I guarantee you is going to be around for a very, very long time, probably until we can download our conscious in robots that do not require food to live. So the restaurant business and, of course, the hospitality, hotels are one of those businesses that I think are going to survive. They are going to change as every other industry, but as humans, we will always need to eat. And with that, I'd like to invite Ben on stage, who is the CEO of Maitly, to talk to us a bit about the changes in that industry. Thank you, Ben.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So restaurant industry, very thin margins, kind of very much focused on operations. Let's look at the macro picture first. What are some of the areas where you see AI currently affecting the industry, and where do you think that's going to progress?
Yeah, I'd say the two main ways we see it really affecting the industry at the moment is both on the front end and the back end. So specifically the back end, the restaurant's ability to be able to see how much stock they need in peak hours, in low hours. There's so much restaurant waste with food that AI is really helping them to be able to moderate the orders they need to fulfill. And then equally on the guest side of things, being able to monetize the phone line sufficiently to make sure there's no leak in revenue. Those are the two big things we're seeing at the moment.
Okay. And the restaurant and obviously the hotel business, by nature, it's very personal. Mm-hmm. And AI adds, generally speaking, and it kind of makes things a little bit more impersonal. So how are those businesses navigating, going after the increased efficiencies that AI will bring while maintaining that personal touch with their customers?
Yeah, so this is really interesting. I would probably argue that pre-AI, the reservation and booking a reservation has never been more impersonable. You either do it on an iPad or a laptop, i.e. you're not speaking to anyone, or 49% of people still book over the telephone, and 50% of those people don't get through to their chosen restaurant. So I would argue that AI, with the phone line specifically, is making it so much more personable that someone can talk to an AI, ask questions about their experience they're going to receive, and that will ultimately translate to a better in-person experience within the restaurant.
You just can't wait to pitch the company, huh?
Yeah.
Okay, well, let's talk a little bit before we get to that. There's the restaurant business, in particular, unlike some other businesses we're going to talk about today, is that there's not a lot that the restaurant knows about their customer. I can walk into a restaurant, even if I made a reservation, I'll eat there, I'll leave, they don't know who I am, they don't know my name. The whole kind of data side around restaurants is not, it's not quite there. And that presents some unique challenges when you're talking about systems that rely on data to improve the experience. So what are some of the unique challenges of the restaurant industry when it comes to data management and acquisition, and what are some of the solutions you think are out there?
So this is probably one of the biggest problems for your general managers that have a large-scale restaurant, where the data is so fragmented at the moment between the point of sale, the reservation platform, the back-end systems for the stock, and the phone line. I think companies are doing really well to be able to centralize all of these data points to make it really easy for the GM or companies to use this information to forecast or whatever they're doing to try and add to their restaurants. It's just about centralizing that data and making it as easy as possible. And there's loads of companies that are doing a really good job of that at the moment.
And again, a little bit different in the restaurant business and other businesses. And I haven't looked at the latest data, but up until recently, labor shortage was an issue in the restaurant business. So it was hard to find good people. Is AI changing that? Is that something that you think that restaurants would be able to operate with fewer people or attract better people? Do you see any opportunities for AI in the kind of labor side of restaurants?
Yeah, I think at the moment you obviously have staff turnover and you have labor shortages, and I think until AI is in a place, which it won't be for the next 5 to 10 years, where you're going to get physical robots come in and serve you food.
Well, China is already there.
Yeah, but China's 10 years ahead of us, right? So I don't think that's going to be an issue, but I think what you will be able to do, especially for your smaller restaurants, is get a lot more output per individual, whether that's the owner-operator being able to streamline operations through the centralized data as we talk about, or just being able to take additional systems off people's plates in order for them to give a better experience in restaurants. So I think it's a net positive for the staff at the moment.
Okay. Well, you touched on it a bit, but let's talk about the problem that Maitly is out to solve. And maybe not just the kind of the wedge into this business, which is pretty easy to understand, but also the aspect of it, which is data creation and collection side, which right now isn't really happening in an efficient way.
Yeah, I think for those of you that don't know, what Maitly is essentially is we're a 24/7 AI answering service for hospitality groups and restaurants. So what we're trying to do is develop the most streamlined way that guests can interact with the restaurant at any given time, whether it's opening hours or when the restaurant's closed. And ultimately being able to collate the data via their purchases and their recent booking history is going to be enabling us to give the most personalized experience over the telephone that they would get by essentially speaking to a human, but even more so by understanding where they've dined, how often they've been to that restaurant, are they a VIP customer, and talking to them by first name, because we can harness that data from all of the integrations, is going to make that process much more formidable for the consumer going into the restaurant.
So one of the things that we have as a general theme in our fund is we're looking for companies that have this data flywheel effect. So effectively, in the case of Maitly, the more restaurants they sign up, the better the product becomes through the use of that data. So I don't want to steal your thunder, but that was one of the big things that attracted me, because in today's day, with vibe coding platforms and kind of the cost of development coming down and the speed increasing significantly, there's no real moat in the software that's sustainable. And the sustainability comes from unique data that offers you that initial moat, but then you have to continue to build on it. And with every new client, the product itself becomes better for the next client. So can you talk a little bit about how Maitly kind of is approaching that?
Yeah, it's all about training the AI, right? So what I say to all of our customers is, as of today, purchasing Maitly for your individual restaurant, it's the worst it's ever going to be, essentially, because every single call that it takes for your restaurant, it's learning the questions that these customers have, it's learning how to deal with these questions that they have, how to answer them efficiently, ultimately leading to a better guest experience, essentially. But especially over a group. So for example, we've got a customer that's trialing Maitly at the moment. They've got 34 locations all over the US, and specifically in multiple cities within a state. So the cross-booking feature of when not only recommending the individual restaurant that they're calling, but for whatever reason, being able to obtain that current customer and put them into another restaurant within the group and keeping that revenue in-house is extremely important. So the cross-booking platform that Maitly can provide groups is essential as well. And like you say, every single call that Maitly takes is gaining a broader understanding of what a guest for that particular restaurant wants and needs.
Yeah, and this is not something to necessarily pitch restaurants when you're pitching the product, but from an investor standpoint, one of the things that we found quite interesting is that every call I make to a Maitly-enabled restaurant identifies me through my phone number. So I'm creating a Maitly profile of what I like. Maybe I'm gluten-free, I'm not. But maybe I have a young kid that needs a kid's menu. I don't. But I do hate cilantro, for example, as all my friends here know. So that's something that I have a gene that it tastes like soap. So if I start asking questions about that, then I might go to a restaurant here and I ask that question, and then I'm traveling to New York and I make a call to a restaurant that I've never been to, if that restaurant is Maitly-enabled restaurant, that my profile carries with me. So that restaurant can present an experience to me that's more customized than me just being a first-time customer where they have no profile. So that I think is a big way, and going back to that flywheel of data, creating a better experience. Talk to us a little bit about the partnership with OpenTable and TRA.
Yes, so the OpenTable partnership is massive for us. So OpenTable have 60,000 restaurants on their platform in America. So it's massive. So it's an overwhelming majority. So Maitly now has the ability to integrate with OpenTable that will allow us to look at the reservations that you've already had. I need to talk to you about this as well. We've actually just came across how we can use their current set of data for all of their current customers. So talking about that flywheel effect,
yeah.
We now have all of the profiles already within OpenTable that we can drip feed into Maitly. But ultimately, we can now push the guest reservation through into OpenTable. So the restaurant that's taking this booking, it will just come up on their current system or iPad, so they don't have to listen to the phone anymore. It won't ever ring again, and all of their reservations that come through via the phone is taken care of Maitly via an OpenTable integration into their current system. So they just see the Maitly reservations coming through freely. So that's super exciting. We're one of a select few voice AI companies that have the privilege of partnering with OpenTable, and we see it as a massive way to scale throughout the States.
We'll talk a bit about TRA, or is that not public yet?
It is now, I guess.
No, you didn't hear that.
So briefly, we're just about to close out on a exclusive deal with the Texas Restaurant Association. So we'll be the only voice AI company that will be endorsed by the TRA. For those of you that don't know, they've got 15,000 members throughout Texas, and they've got 5,000 active members. When we were getting, in recent times, pitched by the TRA of why the membership is good for Maitly, they've currently got a company in an adjacent field that has made their investment back in 42 days, getting rolled out to their 5,000 active users. So we see being based in Austin and using Texas as one of our main levers, a massive way to scale up past 1,000 customers within our first 12 months of business. So yeah, super, super exciting.
Great. Well, just to kind of paint the vision we had when I met Ben, and I make a lot of restaurant reservations, and it's always been very structured in terms of I'll go to OpenTable and I'll make a reservation, or I'll go to a website, try to grab information. And I think the world is kind of moving towards more of a voice interface in general. As you probably know, a lot of companies are looking to launch voice-only platforms, and a lot of people are already using a lot of the major chatbots through voice. And that fluidity of interaction allows you to do things that right now are very challenging to do, and that's really where the vision is. So I want to be able to call up, I remember there was a very hot new restaurant called Red Ash here. If you haven't been, it's great. But it was very difficult to get reservations, and I would go on OpenTable and said, okay, do you have a reservation for this Thursday? Nope. Next Thursday? Nope. So I had to literally go through. So in a platform where I can call up and say, hey, when's your next open Thursday? 3 months from now. Okay, book it. That right now is very difficult to do, and that's one use case. So when we have a system that can, bless you, that can interact with the user, and you introduce that kind of more natural way of talking to the system, that then will ping the various sources of data, whether that's OpenTable or the restaurant's website or review sites or anywhere they can get that information from. I think that will lead to a much better experience for restaurant goers. And as I said, I think restaurants are going to be with us for a long time. So thank you, Ben.